Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Statra Shri Srimad Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Statra Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Mahārāja Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Gahor Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Manamai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Ananta Kurti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 22, text number 31. Please repeat after me. Esha me prapita stahanam dushprapam amarar api savarne antarasyayam bhavitendro Madashraya Eshame Prapitastanam Dushprapam Amararapi Savarnirantaryasyayam Bhavitendra Madashraya Esha me prapitasthānam dushprāpam amarārapi savarnirantarasyaayam bhavitendra madāśraya. Esha me prapitasthānam dushprāpam amarārapi savarnirantarasyaayam bhavitendra madāśraya. Please repeat. Please chant. Anyone else here present? Anyone online would like to chant?
Esha me prapitasthānam dushprāpa marairapi savarne rantarasyayam bhavitendro madāśrayah.
Esha me prapitasthānam dushprāpam amarārapi savarnirantarasyaayam bhavitendro madāśrayah.
Bhavitendro madāśrayah. Esha me prapitasthānam madāśrayam. Esha Bali Mahārāja me, by me, prapita has achieved sthanam, a place, dushprāpam, extremely difficult to obtain, amarayapi, even by the demigods, savarnyantarāsyāya, during the period of the Manu, known as Savarni. Ayam, this Bali Mahārāja, Bhavita will become Indraha, the Lord of the heavenly planet. But Ashrayaha, completely under my protection. So, translation of text number 31. The Lord continued, because of his great tolerance, I have given him a place not obtainable even by the demigods. He will become king of the heavenly planets during the period of the Manu, known as Savarni. Purport. This is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even if the Lord takes away a devotee's material opulences, the Lord immediately offers him a position of which the demigods cannot even dream. There are many examples of this in the history of devotional service. One of them is the opulence of Sudama Vipra. Sudama Vipra suffered severe material scarcity, but he was not disturbed and did not deviate from devotional service. Thus he was ultimately given an exalted position by the mercy of Lord Krishna. Here, the word Mad Ashrayaha is very significant, because the Lord wanted to give Bali Mahārāja the exalted position of Indra. The demigods might naturally have been envious of him and might have fought to disturb his position. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead assured Bali Mahārāja that he would always remain under the Lord's protection. Mad Ashrayaha. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam in the Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakopatrubhishcha Kripa Sindhubevicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Bali Mahārāja surrenders his life. This is the name of the chapter. And this is the assembly of his grandfather, Prahlad Mahārāja is there. Then also his wife is there speaking. Then we also see Lord Brahma. And actually in this text number 31, primarily we see that Vamanadev is answering to Lord Brahma, who came to say a few things. Mostly these great personalities are trying to see what is the purpose. Why are you punishing Bali by sending him to Sutala, by excuse me, by roping him and by sending him to Sutala planet? And here we see that mainly this text is speaking about the great quality of tolerance, which is a quality of knowledge. We learn in the Bhagavad Gita, Kshantir, Ahimsa Kshantir Arjavam. This is tolerance, means Kshantir. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions an example. He says there are many examples in history of devotional service who have that beautiful quality of tolerance. It's a necessary quality. I was surprised not to see the example of Prahlad Mahārāja also here in the purport, because probably the most well-known example of that quality of tolerance in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But also we have Sudama Vipra, the Brahman, who very nicely served with Krishna, along with Krishna, to the spiritual master, and then in family life, and resembled that quality of tolerance, which I'll mention a little bit later. But I was wondering, when I read this purport and this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, why is that it is necessary for Vamanadev to actually send Bali to this planet, Sutala planet, because he already passed the test. We already see that he's a wonderful devotee. There's nothing else that seemingly there's nothing else that needs to be done by Bali Mahārāja to prove that. But towards the end of this chapter, it is nicely mentioned that the idea is that Bali Mahārāja was born in a demoniac family, so he was associating with demoniac people, non-devotees. So therefore that association affected him. And Srila Prabhupada explains that he sends him there to protect from the effects of bad association that he had to undergo, being a descendant of this dynasty, demonic dynasty. And that's why we see that Vamanadev agrees to go with him to Sutala planet. And he actually says that, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that Vamanadev will become a doorkeeper of Bali. And he says that I'll stay awake all the time to protect you. All the time he will stay awake to protect him. And at some point, we also learned that even Ravana came to Sutala planet and wanted to possess that planet, attack that planet. And Vamanadev kicked him out of protected him like that. So he says no one will give you trouble there. And along with Vamanadev also will come relatives and friends who are devotees, as far as I understand. So those qualities of not devotional qualities or traces of them, as an example of Bali Maharaj, will be diminished, will be annihilated in this way. So that's one reason we can see why Sutala planet is there given to Bali Maharaj. And also it's described that it's much more opulent than any heavenly planet, even Svargaloka. So a very opulent place to be in. And it's important to, if we are born in this environment of the effect of the modes of nature and the demonic qualities, it's important to take satsanga, to take association with devotees. Rupa Goswami actually describes that in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says that there are three components to sadhu sangha. First is sajatiya. This is the component in which we come in association with like-minded intentions and understanding of sadhya, or conclusions, our goal, conclusions of our practice. Also, snigdha is another component. This is we should be affectionate, we should be soft-hearted, we should be accepting, we should be challenging, we should have that in our sangha. We should all be like that. And svatovare means to associate with advanced devotees, to have someone who would lead the sangha, someone more advanced, Madhyamadikari, or if we're fortunate, Uttamadikari. And if we don't have that someone who is advanced on that level, at least what we can do in our sangha is to discuss examples of advanced devotees, such as examples of Srila Prabhupada, great acharyas, examples of characters of Srimad Bhagavatam. This will also create that mood and help us in sadhu sangha. And Rupa Goswami also explains that if those components are not there, the effect of sadhu sangha will not be thorough, will not be complete. So therefore, in our association with devotees, if we are trying to give association, create a sangha, we should look for these components as far as possible. It's very important. And we had a great, just recently, example of it. A group of young youth devotees came and did a retreat, just a few days retreat. I find it to be really inspiring to have retreats like that. I guess they have it in India also, East and West Coast. What is it called exactly? TSI? TSI. So that's a way to create that type of sangha, satsanga, and empower young leaders in devotional service, so they can be confident in taking leadership position and help this movement. So, okay, that's something about sadhu sangha, satsanga. In the previous verse, we see that Bali Maharaj, he went through a lot. He was falling from his original position, defeated, bereft of all riches, arrested by his enemies, rebuked and deserted by his relatives and friends, although suffering the pain of being bound, and although rebuked and cursed by his own spiritual master. So many things that happened to Bali Maharaj, but nevertheless he still was very tolerant, knowing that my tolerance is, it will help me to eventually attain the mercy of Vamanadev. And actually to develop qualities, the Vaishnava qualities, it is important to sacrifice something, like Bali Maharaj sacrificed a lot of his possessions. So also we should sacrifice if we want to develop these qualities. It's a necessity. Like we sacrifice sleep, for example. We get up early in the morning. It's so dear. Bhagavatam describes that the dearest thing to people is their body and the enjoyment that comes from the body. And of course sleeping is a very nice enjoyment. All of us, we like to sleep, but to sacrifice sleep for sadhana, for Krishna, is a sure way to advance in spiritual life. And if we want to develop those qualities, we can't. Without sacrifice, it's impossible. If we just consume, if we just neglectful of the principles of sadhana bhakti, then it won't be possible. It will be, it might be possible, but very slow, very slow. So, whatever we have to tolerate in our practice of devotional service is nothing but examination by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna will test us. And Javira Prabhu nicely mentioned that we're being tested in two ways, primarily. First is we might undergo some suffering, or we might undergo some inducement to enjoy, essentially. So, primarily two things like that. Krishna will test us. But if we're sincere in the path of bhakti, then Krishna, although the test will come, Krishna will give us the strength, as explained in the previous purport. He'll give us the strength necessary to overcome the difficulties and tests, if we are sincere. Yeah, Krishna does not want to just torture us. He will give us guidance and necessary knowledge and strength to overcome difficulties. One time, Srila Prabhupada, he was lecturing in Bombay, and he said that if you do not take Krishna consciousness seriously in this human form of life, you're drinking poison willingly. And that reminded me of a bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur, who also says a similar thing, that I have taken this human form of life, but I'm not serving Radha and Krishna, therefore I'm drinking poison willingly. And then he says, Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana, that although the solution is obvious, the holy name, chanting of the holy name, I do not take to this process. I do not have the means to take to this process. Showing his humility and tolerance. And then he says that Krishna comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Balaram comes as Nityananda. So their mercy is accessible to us. We just need to resemble the qualities of Trinadapi Sunichena and take up the holy name seriously. Then if we're humble, if we're sincere, if we're tolerant, then Kirtaniya Sadahari, then we can chant the holy name incessantly without obstructions. So tolerance is very, very helpful in our devotional life to associate with the holy name properly. And we have to tolerate a lot of things in the material world. That's a fact. For better or worse, we have to do it. If we choose the worst side of things, then we have to tolerate a lot of things to enjoy sensually. And that's, of course, baffled. We know this in the Bhagavad Gita, the famous verse that says that material happiness is followed by miseries. Yehi samspasha jeboha dukkayana evate. That misery is always followed. When there's a little happiness, there's always misery followed along the way. And ultimately, we don't succeed, we don't attain anything. But whereas suffering for Krishna is much more beneficial for a living entity. Devotees, they're ready to do it. Like, for example, shopping for bhoga, right? Going in the morning especially. It's an austerity, it's a sacrifice that I have to do, sacrifice time to be conscious in the morning program. I have to go, I have to drive there, I have to speak with people, load the car, come, unload, bring it to the temple like that. Then cooking in the morning, I have to sacrifice also my chanting, and I have to prepare bhoga, I have to cut fruits or vegetables during the day. Lifting, carrying, cutting, cooking, all these things that we do, preaching, organizing, setting things up, maintaining it. It's not easy. It requires a sacrifice and it requires an effort. Finding people to play musical instruments, finding people to speak, finding people to attend or inspire people to attend, inviting people like that. It's not easy, so it requires a sacrifice from devotees. But we should know for certain that this sacrifice will surely give us, it will pay off in the end. Yesterday I was distributing books. I went to UCSD. Not yesterday, actually the day before yesterday. Yesterday I didn't go. And I went on campus, but the campus was closed. I was like, well, that's a bummer. UCSD. They open later at the end of the month. So I was like, what to do? And the parking is a little bit far from the campus, so I was like, okay, I have to go back, drag my car back to the parking. And then what do I do next? I have to go somewhere else, so I had to drive to another school, Miramar College. No, I went there. It was, it's not. I guess there's Miramar College, there's Mesa College, and there's also Grossman College. They're kind of interconnected. But the Miramar College, from my understanding, has the least amount of students. It's not a busy school. So I set up a table, and it was kind of slow. But to my fortune, I met Sukanta Prabhu there and his friend Daniel, who were there with me for a while. And we were distributing books together. It was nice. And I had an experience of meeting one person. And she just came to the US, actually. She's an older woman from an Arabic country. She was maybe in her 50s. And she was at the college. I think she was taking maybe some English classes or something. But I approached her. I don't remember what I said exactly. She was sitting on the bench, and I came to her, offered some books. She took them. And she told me something that was, unusual. She said, I was born and I had two siblings. What do you call the people that you have twins, but you also have when three people, triplets. Triplets. So she was born with two more triplets, two more sister and a brother. And what she told me that almost immediately, almost right away, they left the body. And she got to know about it, and she was in grief the whole life. She couldn't get over it. She still is trying to understand why is this such circumstances take place. And like an example that Srila Prabhupada gives, with Jivita Prabhu mentioned, with the war, the Second World War. Yeah, the wives of the soldiers who lost their life, they were also blaming God, not understanding why. Why is this like that? We're praying so much, but there's nothing from God to give mercy to us. He takes away the life of soldiers, innocent soldiers. So also we can see that how we are actually innocent. We can look back to see whether we really innocent in a bigger frame, bigger picture. So to my surprise, sometimes, when the person, she asked me, why is it so? Why is it, where is fairness in this? Why is it so? Why is it that God takes away life like that? So in a situation like that, we kind of have to, preach according to a person. We have to be, emotionally also connected and intelligent, not to disrupt the mind of a person, not to, we kind of have to be heartfelt in this experience. So I tried to say something, not only solely philosophically. And what I find interesting is that in the time of preaching, when we try to sincerely present Krishna consciousness in this way, we'll be able to meet people in such difficult situations, and we'll be able to, although say things that are quite common and they're not outstanding. There's nothing so special. I just said that we are the soul, imperishable soul. We'll never cease to be. We're eternal. We have so much hope because this body is only given to us as a combination of the modes of nature. It's not who we truly are. So our real self is eternal self. I said something along these lines, and she accepted that, and she also took the books. And I find in all these attempts to preach and to say solely a mercy of Srila Prabhupada, giving us the right type of mood, intention, state of mind to associate with people in this way. So, and learning from preaching on campuses in public places that we should carry this mood into our sangha, into the temple life. Prabhupada wanted us to be humble in the temple and very bold in preaching the message of Krishna consciousness out there. So always remembering this great instruction by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Trinatapi Sunichina Taroravasa Hishnana Hamanina Manadana Kirtaniya Sadahari. That's essential. So Srila Prabhupada mentions an example of Sudam Vipra, Brahman, who also resembled the quality of tolerance. Does anyone remember why he was tolerant? And how he resembled that quality of tolerance? What did he do exactly?
Material poverty.
Yes. Yes, he was... first of all, actually, he was in a Gurukul with Krishna, and they were sent to the forest to get some luck, to get some wood for their spiritual master. And all of a sudden, it was a winter time, the rain started. They collected the wood, and now it started raining. It was really cold, and it was also getting darker in the day. It was an evening time. And then in winter time, the darkness comes earlier, the hours. So they carried the wood. They collected and they carried the wood. They didn't let go of the wood. They assembled it and they took it with them. And then in the morning, Sandipani Muni came and looked for both of them. So that's the first example why Sudam Vipra Brahman was tolerant. He was undergoing this severe austerities for his spiritual master. And then also we learned that he was poverty-stricken. He didn't have proper housing. It's described in the Bhagavatam that the place where they were staying with his wife, the walls were shattered, the roof was broken, and even his clothing was torn and dirty, the Brahmana. when he first came to Krishna, to Dwarka, he didn't come to any, there's 16,000 different palaces, but he came exactly to the one where Krishna and Rukmini lives. And the first question Krishna asked him was, you know Dharma. He said, you know Dharma. You're a married person. You're not a sannyasi, are you? Because he was judging by the way he looks. They haven't seen each other for a long time. And noticing that he's poverty-stricken, he was asking him, are you married? You married? Is everything okay with your marriage? And when before he went to the palace, he didn't want to go because he knew that the only reason why I should approach the Lord is if I want to ask for more devotion, more service. That's the only reason why I should come. But his wife insisted we should really come. And then he said, well, I'm a Brahman, I should be humble. But Krishna is dear to the Brahmanas, you should still come. She was convincing him. No, I shouldn't do that. I should only come if I have a necessity to ask for more devotion, for more devotional service. No, you should come. The Lord will be merciful to you. She was trying to convince him. Because she herself had to be more tolerant than the husband. Since a wife, she should look out for the welfare of children and the husband as well, to make sure that he's well-fed, well-clothed, to protect the family like that. Of course, he didn't go empty-handed. His wife collected some cheap flat rice from the local brahmanas. And we all know the story, how it followed that Krishna he welcomed the Sudama Brahmana, he was worshipping him, he bathed his feet, then he offered him some prasadam, he smeared his body with sandalwood paste and all the things like that, and he stayed the night. And the next morning, Sudam Vipra Brahmana didn't ask for anything. He didn't ask for anything. He just spent nice time with Krishna, went home, and saw the beautiful palace. His wife looked differently. He didn't recognize her. He thought that she looked like someone from heavenly planets. So that's how Krishna, we see that this is a confirmation, Bhagavatam, that Krishna rewards devotees if we undergo some austerities, some tolerance, some difficulties. for his pleasure. It's just a well-known fact. And I want to conclude the class now by reading something from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the 10th canto. It's about how, of course, Krishna rewards devotees, but now at this point we should seek that, I guess, reward by being fortunate enough to have accepted a spiritual master. That we have Srila Prabhupada, our own spiritual master. And Bhagavatam says that this indeed is the duty of all true disciples to repay the debt to their spiritual master by offering him with pure hearts their wealth and even their very lives. And Srila Prabhupada, or disciples of Srila Prabhupada, explained, one engages one's body to realize one's purposes. The body is also the basis of the material conception of I, while one's fortune is the basis of the conception of mine. Thus, by offering everything to the spiritual master, one realizes oneself to be an eternal servant of the Lord. So that's the benefit. If we offer ourselves, of course, we can't really say that I can repay the spiritual master that great debt. But if I try to sincerely offer this life to the spiritual master in service, accepting the austerity of preaching, Srila Prabhupada would explain that your advancement will be seen how much envy you have within yourself. So if we sacrifice this false ego, we sacrifice our comforts in serving the devotees and preaching the glories of the Harinam, this movement, then this is a sure way to see that the devotees are sincere and they trying to repay the debt to the spiritual master. So one will realize to be eternal servant of the Lord. That will be the reward. The spiritual master does not exploit the disciple, but rather engages him fully in Krishna consciousness for the disciple's eternal benefit. Yes, we should see that that's not what spiritual master wants. He doesn't want to exploit us just to be a menial servant, just to do some things like that, just to make his life more comfortable. No, he wants us to be trained and realize our real position as the eternal servant of Krishna. That's what we learn in example of Bali Mahārāja. That's what we learn in example of Prahlad Mahārāja, example of Sudam. So, thank you so much for your attention. This is something about this part of Srimad Bhagavatam, text 31. I'll read it again. The Lord continued, because of great tolerance, I have given him a place not obtainable even by the demigods. He will become king of the heavenly planets during the period of the Manu known as Savarni. So Bhavitendra means that Bali Mahārāja, after spending time on Sutala planet, will take the position of the king of heavenly planets. That's confirmation we have in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And also Mat Ashreha is a very important word here. Srila Prabhupada mentions that also, to remain under protection of the Lord. Completely under protection. That's what Bali Mahārāja experiences. He is always under protection. Hare Krishna. Would there be any questions or additions? This. Yeah.
Subject is largely the tolerance, as shown, especially shown by Bali Mahārāja. And you quoted that verse, famous verse, Trinadapi Sunicena. Just for those who are interested and who would like to memorize verses, of course that's one we should all memorize. We should keep it around our neck. When the Chaitanya Charitamrita was first published in 1975, of course, the very last chapter of the book is about the Shikshastika. And that verse appeared and was Trinad Abhisuni Chena Taror Eva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanik Sadahari. So the second line, I think you recited it, Taror Eva Sahishnuna. Prabhupada would always recite it, Taror Api Sahishnuna. And when we did some research, we found that in the Padyavali, which is the source actually of the Shikshastika, it was Api. Api means more than. Eva means as. So as tolerant as a tree, but Tador Apiseshana means more tolerant than a tree. And that's actually the original Tador Apiseshana. So even though it appeared in the CC in that way, that was a mistake in the Gaudiya version of it, which Prabhupada used for getting the Bengali at first. So those who are interested, always they Tador Apiseshana, more tolerant than a tree. It's significant.
More tolerant. Thank you, Devotee Prabhu, for this comment. Anything else from devotees here in the temple room? Chat.
This wasn't the major part of your class, but when you mentioned this point that we owe our spiritual lives to our spiritual masters, so we owe our lives, or we owe our spiritual lives at least, maybe you said we owe our lives, but we owe our spiritual lives to our gurus, and from one point of view, at least if I'm looking at other devotees I know, if I'm looking at, let's say, Sankarsana, then if Sankarsana was to say, I owe my spiritual life to my guru, I would feel like, well, that's somewhat inaccurate. I think if you never met Prahladananda Swami, you would still have a spiritual life and be advancing in spiritual life. You could take initiation. You could be inspired and take initiation from another spiritual master. You had a spiritual master, or you had a spiritual life before you came into contact with Prahladananda Swami. And so, but in many Vyasa Puja offerings, we say this very emphatically, that I owe my whole spiritual life to you, and so on. And with the previous generation, or the previous generation, Srila Prabhupada's disciples, it maybe makes more sense. It seems more natural, and it seems pretty accurate. But for many people, even then, not all Srila Prabhupada's disciples either, though.
I was thinking that.
But for some of them, for some of them you can say that. Before meeting Srila Prabhupada, they had no spiritual life, knew nothing about spiritual life. But for many devotees now, it seems they have a spiritual life, then they come into contact with their spiritual master, and then they take initiation. So, of course, we can say that, well, Diksha is so essential, and so what kind of spiritual life do you have before Diksha? But do we have more to say about that? Or is it just profuse, is it just culturally appropriate to offer such profuse praise, or should we see it very literally, and in what way should we see that literally?
It's like when you glorify the devotees, maybe when you glorify them, they don't resemble exactly this qualities to 100% that you're trying to glorify them for. They do have the qualities, but maybe you're trying to even inspire them to develop further. So this is, as I see it, is that we all in training, and we all trying to understand the statements like that, and we don't have it maybe completely, but at least our duty is to accept it and try to live a life in such surrender. And as you said, that we have examples by previous generation disciples, direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who did that. I mean, they sacrificed so much of their health in traveling and preaching. It's actually astonishing to see that. So just like we read about Srila Prabhupada, we learn about Srila Prabhupada by associating with him through lectures and reading his biography books. We can also try to take advantage to associate with devotees who have resembled this statement of Srimad Bhagavatam, to give complete whole life to the spiritual master. So I'd say that we're all in training, but it's good that we accept this type of statements. It's very helpful.
Now, when offering these kinds of statements, though, I'm wondering what sort of conception I should have, or any disciple should have, because it would seem odd if the disciple should have the idea in mind that I'm saying to my spiritual master, I owe you everything. Without you, I would have no spiritual life. I would have no spiritual life without you. it would seem odd to me if the disciple's thinking, this isn't really true, but I should say it to glorify my guru, you know, that I'm encouraging him or something like that. Because with some, you're saying with some praise, we may say, wow, you're a wonderful something, you're very good at this. At least some may take that tactic, some may disagree with that tactic. But let's say, go with your perspective, you're saying that sometimes we may glorify a devotee, even though it's not, they aren't, you know, fully there, but there, you want to encourage them. But even if that was the case, it seems that wouldn't be your mood when you're glorifying your spiritual master. So I'm wondering if it's still appropriate to even say that to your spiritual master if you don't truly feel like that. And if you should say that to your spiritual master and you should feel like that, that you can't pay my debt to my spiritual master specifically because I would have no spiritual life without him. Yeah. And on what level is that true?
Another way of looking at it, I think, is to see that our spiritual master has earned his life to his spiritual master. So we can, at the very least, glorify that, notice that, and maybe pray to him to be able to also do the same. There's actually also one nice example in this Bhagavatam. I read one text at the conclusion of the class. Then the next one says, in the perpetual disciples of Srila Prabhupada explains that cooked food left sitting for 3 hours is called yata yama, indicating that it has lost its taste. And similarly, if a devotee does not remain fixed in Krishna consciousness, the transcendental knowledge that once inspired him on the spiritual path will lose its taste or meaning for him. So thus Sandipani Muni blesses his disciples that the Vedic mantras which reveal the absolute truth will never lose their meaning for them, but will remain ever fresh in their minds. So we can see that if a devotee wants to keep developing in Krishna consciousness, be fixed in Krishna consciousness, then he should always praise his spiritual master and try to offer his life to him.
When we talk about, I would have no spiritual life without you, and this talk is there. I mean, you're saying maybe it could be true in the case of some Prabhupada disciples. I mean, looking around the world, like Fridananda Goswami, who went down to Fridananda Goswami went down to Mexico, and with Chitsukananda, they opened a big temple, and there was packed full of devotees. Factually, Prabhupada could have never went down there, and Fridananda Swami could have initiated all of them. Or like London, same thing. So many places all over the world, Australia, the place was just packed, and they never met Prabhupada. I mean, they maybe heard some of his lectures or something, but they never met him. So, but as a rule that the disciples don't initiate in the presence of the spiritual master, then of course all those devotees were being given to Srila Prabhupada as his disciples. So I'm just saying that that point that maybe in some of the cases with some of his disciples having no spiritual life, but they had spiritual life before they met Srila Prabhupada, like in Mexico and Australia and London and so many places. But still they felt that great affection for Srila Prabhupada, mostly due to his example of Krishna consciousness and the general inspiration he gave. I mean, he's a very inspirational personality, obviously. But if we look at the guru in terms of like the guru principle, I want to talk about the guru principle, that yes, without a guru, without gurus, then we have no spiritual life. So whether you want to see that as Srila Prabhupada or your own spiritual master, Shiksha gurus, we don't have any spiritual life without guidance, without being guided by a guru. There is no spiritual life.
And also we don't have many qualities also that help us to be an appropriate disciple, but in times of practice and also our endeavors to pray, and endeavors to please the spiritual master, we receive the necessary mercy, knowledge, understanding. So also, if we don't feel like our life belongs to the spiritual master, we can just accept that statement and pray for it, and in time we might wholeheartedly accept it and actually feel like that, not out of sentiment, but truly feel like that.
I was thinking that it especially fits when devotees are glorifying Srila Prabhupada, when Western devotees especially are glorifying Srila Prabhupada, and they say, I owe my spiritual life to you. Because in the West, without Srila Prabhupada, yes, even if I never met Srila Prabhupada, if I met disciples of Srila Prabhupada, really any, preaching Vaishnava in the West, it's due to Srila Prabhupada, practically speaking. And so definitely still, that's as like foolproof, like solid a statement as it can get. But then, yes, I see Balaram Prabhu's point when it comes to maybe me writing to my own spiritual master. If I were to say that, I could definitely say that with the interpretation that, well, the guru principle, without the guru principle, I would have no spiritual life. Not necessarily without you specifically, because I had other gurus in my life. But I'm wondering if I feel like there's probably something more that I'm missing about this Diksha relationship that I need to, so I'm going to try to figure that out. I think there's something else with this Diksha relationship that I'm missing that would make that statement solid, or like in this way also. Definitely it's solid because without any gurus in your life, you have no spiritual life, definitely. But one thing, this is a bit different, but one thing that I've noted, at least I think I've noted, maybe I'm just looking for faults, but such statements I see generally reserved for one's Diksha Guru, and I don't see as many devotees readily saying that about the devotees who helped raise them in Krishna consciousness, or any sort of Shiksha Guru. And so, yes, so I've seen, so let's say there's a disciple of Jayapataka Swami, Radhanath Swami, a spiritual master who has many disciples, and someone may speak about them that without my spiritual master, before I met my spiritual master, without my spiritual master I would be nothing, and I would have no Krishna consciousness. And it seems to me that someone at least could think there's something deficient there, because what about all of the devotees who raised you in Krishna consciousness, introduced you to Krishna consciousness? You've met your spiritual master in person a few times, and yes, he really strengthened you and he connected you to the parampara, and there's so much there. But what about that? So that's on my mind too, but I don't think that that's something to really dive into deep in this class. But that was something also on my mind, that when I hear those statements, sometimes I feel like that would be even more appropriate to say to the people who raised you in Krishna consciousness, even more than your Diksha Guru. But maybe I'm just missing something about that Diksha relationship, the subtle aspect of the Diksha relationship, that's really so essential here.
Thank you. I guess we should kind of separate this to Shiksha and Diksha in this way, especially when it comes to being grateful like that and praying. We should keep that in mind also. But it's a good point that sometimes when I think like that, we just think our Diksha Guru, but we kind of disregard, at least we could feel like that, disregard the ones who raised us in Krishna consciousness. So that's it's a very good point. But Guru Tattva is obviously not easily understood. So,
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I say something?
Yes, Paneshwari.
It's Paneshwari Lakshmi. Hare Krishna. Interesting class. An interesting question. So just a couple of things that came to my mind as you were speaking. Yes, there are many different types of gurus. So that's one thing we need to remember, right? There's the Siksha, there's the Diksha, there's the Kula Guru, and there's also the Vartma Pradarshaka Guru. So each one of those we give respect to, because without one, you might not have gotten the others. So as far as for myself, there's different people who have guided me, obviously my parents. But also I honor Jayanti Radhika as the one that really connected me to my Guru Mahārāja. So I think each one of these gurus we do respect and we do offer our gratitude to because of how they have led us.
Yes.
As far as Western devotees or people who are, you said specifically Western devotees, should be grateful to Srila Prabhupada. Well, as an Indian devotee who was born in India but raised here, obviously family was very orthodox and all that. But I wonder if I would have met Srila Prabhupada if I had been in India. Like, would I have been able to be connected to him? Because there is already so much tradition there. So in many ways, there is that gratitude for many of us. So it's not just Western devotees, only Eastern, even those from India have a lot to be grateful for. The other question or comment that I had was, if I remember, and I don't know, I thought I heard this before, and maybe Gravita Prabhu could correct, is not our relationship with our Guru Maharaj eternal? That is the question I have. I thought I had heard that at some point, so if that is the case, then maybe we are meant to be with this particular guru, since Prabhu's question, Mukunda Prabhu's question was about, would not somebody else, if not Prahaladananda Maharaj, then somebody else would have connected. So just a couple of thoughts and just a couple of comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
That is very helpful. Thank you, and cleared up a lot for us.
One thing, well, first of all, yes, I should have clarified. When I was saying that, especially Western devotees, or definitely for Western devotees, any Western devotee can say, without Srila Prabhupada, I would have no spiritual life, because virtually speaking, what hope would there be if you ever even finding out about Krishna? Whereas I meant to compare that to devotees in India. They could at least, think that theoretically, even if not for Srila Prabhupada, I may have come into contact with Krishna consciousness, with Vaishnavism. And so I wouldn't have had all of the beautiful opportunities that Srila Prabhupada gave specifically, and all of the potency coming from Srila Prabhupada. But at least one could think that possibly I could have come into contact with Krishna consciousness. I could have had a Vaishnava spiritual life even without Srila Prabhupada if I was born in India. There's some possibility, is all I meant to say there. But regarding that last part you mentioned, well, isn't our relationship with our spiritual master eternal? That's something that's curious to me. I'm wondering if anyone has some shastra for those points. Typically we hear that the relationship you create with your spiritual master is then eternal going forward. So is it, but rarely have I heard that your relationship with your spiritual master is eternal in both directions. You've always had this particular individual as your spiritual master, and now you are reuniting with your spiritual master, and then going forward, he will always be your spiritual master. That I haven't heard many times. More often the latter, and even that part's not so clear to me. Even when you see Srila Prabhupada's comments on the Bill of Mangala Thakur, Chintamani example, still it's not so clear to me. But maybe, does anyone in the room have something? Or Paneshri Mataji, do you have anything in reference to that?
Yes, there's something from David.
The other thing that I remember is and I should look this up too, but that I remember somebody asked some question similar to that to my Guru Maharaj, and he said that I think somebody asked, what will be our relationship when we go back to the spiritual world? And he said that the Guru is like a friend who takes you by the hand, and he takes you and places your hand in Krishna's hand. Something to that effect. I don't know if anybody else has heard something like that. So it's like he's a good friend of yours. So that's the eternal relationship. I'm assuming, I guess this is an assumption. I'm going to try and find that quote, see where it is. But something to that effect is what I remember hearing.
I think Srila Prabhupada also says something like that, as far as I remember.
The last thing I'll say is, I especially appreciate that point you mentioned, though, Paneshri Mataji, about if we consider our Diksha relationship eternal, then whether or not my Diksha Guru was the one to introduce me to Krishna consciousness, still so much is depending on that relationship, that eternal relationship. Even if I don't finish this lifetime, the next lifetime, if we understand it like that, then that does help understand why I may say that I have no, without you I'd had no spiritual life. especially when you see that broader picture of an eternal relationship with your spiritual master. But David has something to say.
I don't know if this is totally bona fide, but I do remember reading in a book by, I think, Sridhar Mahārāja, The Subjective Evolution of Consciousness, if I'm not mistaken, that it can vary, and that it's the connection to the Guru Tattva, not necessarily the connection to the individual who's the initiating or instructing spiritual master in a given life. Sometimes it can be that eternal relationship, but just as often it can be the relationship to the Guru in a more general sense, the Guru Tattva.
And we can look into it more, perhaps.
Look into it more. Thank you for your comments. It was a very interesting discussion. Granta Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful lecture, wonderful questions, wonderful discussion. I don't have anything to add right this second. Thank you.